It's time to do my UFC 113 review video. It's a tad late because I had to work this morning, and I got back home late from the bar watching it with a couple of friends, pretty late. Friends you've probably seen in my videos if you've watched the FIFA stuff that I posted when we were doing that tournament, because most of them were there for that. My hair is a mess, but you will deal with it as I will deal with it. Or you'll stop watching the video, I guess. I don't know. I'm going to start this off a little bit, though, with a preface of, what do you guys want from my review videos? I don't know. Like, I got an idea of what I should do for picks, but for reviews, do you want me to go, like, really, really in-depth on the fight? Do you want me to talk about who they should fight next? Do you want me to do a little bit of both? Do you want me to do... I guess that's really the two ways to go with it. But, let's dive in before I use up too much time. John Salter beat Jason McDonald due to a leg break or ankle break. I've heard both. I haven't seen the fight, so I'm going to go look that up sometime today, though. Mike Gaiman beat Yoshiyuki Yoshida, UD. Not surprised, although I did pick Yoshida. Joey Beltran, UD over Tim Hague. Judges apparently were drunk. The scores just look weird for the fight. That's all there is to it. When you have three judges who score the fight like entirely differently, you probably have something weird going on. Johnny Hendricks beat TJ Grant, majority decision. That was closer than I thought it was, apparently, from the play-by-play I read. Marcus Davis, Jonathan Goulet. This is the first fight we actually got to see. It was actually the last fight we saw, but the first fight in terms of chronological order on the card. Basically, Goulet doing what he usually does. He looks pretty good until he gets knocked out. That's about it. He was hanging in there on the feet with Davis. He took Davis down a couple times. Davis had a really good guillotine attempt, but Goulet fought out of it and kind of controlled it from there on the ground until Davis could get back up. But, all the talent in the world doesn't help you if you can't take a punch. And that's kind of what we got from Jonathan Goulet here. Very talented Canadian fighter. A guy that, I really, when he came to the UFC, I was excited. I thought he would, do some things. Because he's got, by Canadian standards, really good wrestling. And by overall standards, average. He's got good stand-up. He's got, I believe he's a brown belt now. Might still be a purple, but I believe he's a brown belt now. In the BJJ game, he's got good cardio. He's ballsy. He's generally follows a game plan pretty well. But he can't take a punch, and it just keeps cropping up again and again with him. Another Canadian in action, Joe Dirksen, getting a win over Tom Lawler. I picked Lawler in this fight, so I'm a bit let down. But you know what? I'm never going to complain when El Dirte wins, because I think El Dirte is a highly underrated fighter. His record in the UFC is quite terrible, but you look at the names who beat him, and I don't know if you could really dispute any of it except for perhaps Ed Herman, who he was doing pretty well against up until Ed Herman landed a punch from hell and broke his face, basically. But I mean, aside from that, his wins are all to title contenders and basically title contenders, because I guess Jason McDonald isn't really particularly a title contender, but he was kind of in the mix. Anyways, Dirksen gets a rear naked choke on Lawler. Basically, good striking exchange, more even than I thought. Dirksen's stand-up looked not terribly good, actually. It was more Lawler's stand-up didn't look as good as it has in his last couple of fights. Second round, Lawler goes for a takedown. Dirksen, reverses it to get his back and rear nakeds him. Lawler, I don't really know what to do. I mean, he kind of gassed out, and his striking didn't look that good. It just kind of looked like he didn't train full bore for this fight. Perhaps that he needs to change the hairdo and lose the porn stash, because it was disturbing. Anyways, good job for Dirty Joe. Love it. Let's see. Next up was Alan Belcher, Patrick Cote. This was the first fight we actually saw on the night. Belcher, Cote, back and forth in the first round with the striking. Cote with a takedown. Belcher reversed it when Cote went for a Kimura, which was probably a bad idea because the positioning wasn't exactly prime for a Kimura. And Belcher is pretty hard to tap unless he's off his game, like he was against Kendall Grove. Second round, more of the same, a little bit of back and forth. Belcher getting a little bit of the better of it this time, I think. Cote goes for a takedown. Belcher stuffs it pretty good and kind of face plants him, which, in terms of the legality and illegality of it, I have to be honest. I would have to look up the rules to see if it specifically states, as Joe Rogan has said, spiking on the top of the head, in which case it's legal. But I always thought it was spiking on the head that was illegal. This wasn't, really a spike, but it incidentally pretty much knocked Cote out. And then, Belcher got his back and rear naked him. A little bit of bone to pick with Cote has been that he does tap pretty quick, and he doesn't seem to really work his way out of submissions very well, which is fine if you're, really new to the UFC, but seeing as he's been around since his debut was back in the War of '04, so 2004, I believe late 2004 against Tito Ortiz, you would think he would kind of have something for that. And he trains with Fabio Holanda and the guys at BTT Canada, which is, a pretty solid grappling gym. And he trains, sometimes with GSP. It's just kind of weird that he doesn't have better submission defense and counter grappling. Matt Mitrione, Kimbo Slice. Kimbo Slice showing up, again. He has wrestling. But Mitrione picked him apart on the feet. And whenever he hit Mitrione just kind of smiled at him. And in a way that makes me think that it actually wasn't bothering him. Unlike a lot of people will, smile and, nod or whatever when they get rung. It didn't really seem to be the case with Mitrione. Mitrione had a couple of submission attempts, triangles, and anacondas, two-piece, I do believe. But he could not submit Kimbo because, his ground game just, isn't there. And was arguing with my friend who was trying to tell me why I shouldn't have picked Kimbo. And I kind of went, well, Mitrione looked better than he generally does, and that was still pretty bad, and Kimbo looked really bad. That's kind of it. Kimbo showed some wrestling, again, like the Houston Alexander fight, but against heavyweights, he's just not big enough to kind of brute force his way, basically he tried to do, and that's kind of it. And it's surprising that at ATT, he still hasn't been spelled with much in the way of ground game or cardio, which is really disturbing because that's kind of what that game does. It kind of confuses me. Jeremy Stevens, Sam Stout. This fight could have gone either way. It depends how you see the second round. I did see the fight for Stevens, and he won, which was good, but the judges scored at 30-27 for Stevens. Needs to watch the third round again because that third round was, the first and third round were pretty polarized. First round Stevens, third round Stout. It's just really the second round that's debatable. And, there was a couple of, weird scores on this night that had me, once again, disturbed for UFC judging. But anyways, Sam Stout, he did what he had to do. It's just, in the end, he couldn't really hurt Jeremy Stevens with anything but leg kicks. And he kind of gave up on the leg kicks in the third round. Admittedly, he needed to make a statement and kind of finish the fight because, Stevens, even when he was losing the exchanges, would generally land the power shot of the exchange that would kind of leave, if you weren't watching really, really closely, you would think Stevens was winning the exchanges every time when, he was winning a few, but he wasn't winning, every time is what I mean. But he could knock down Stout. He could take Stout down. Couldn't do much on the ground. Actually, Stout showed better grappling than Stevens, which, probably says something for Stevens. The grappling needs to improve. But I'm running out of time. So, last two fights tonight, because they're the important ones. Koscheck Daly. Koscheck doing what Koscheck has to do, taking him down. There's really not much anything more to say about the fight. It was basically Daly being a little bit tentative because he didn't want to get taken down and getting taken down anyways. And, Koscheck with a clear-cut, unanimous decision. Daly with the cheap shot after the fight. He's been cut. He will be fined, I'm sure. Don't know if he'll be suspended because the Quebec Athletic Commission isn't very big on suspensions, and that's where this was. So, we'll see. But I would say that we'll probably not see him for a little bit. Might go back to Strikeforce. Main event. Oh yeah, Koscheck gets to coach against GSP on the Ultimate Fighter. Probably a title shot, although I don't believe that's been guaranteed. Shogun Lyoto 2. This was the fight everyone was waiting for, and it really didn't live up to the hype because I think Lyoto. I was saying how Lyoto wouldn't change his game plan really, but I thought he would take the fight seriously, and he really didn't seem to. He looked a little out of shape, although the fight didn't really go long enough for us to really get a good barometer on that. But he had 2 takedowns, which he did, quite honestly, nothing with. People complain about lay and pray. That was, I don't know what that was if you consider lay and pray to be lay and pray. Shogun just caught him with didn't really look like a great punch, but it knocked him down, and then he finished him with strikes and knocked him out. And he's the champ. He's got the belt that he deserved the first time around. Anyways, that's it.